Good afternoon and welcome to this Tuesday, November 13th edition of Westman Newsline. I'm Dylan Donald alongside Randy Joseph Lilly and Jordan Olson. In today's news, we'll bring you an update on the Spirit Sands Casino slated to be built near Carberry, as well as some highlights from yesterday's Brandon School Board meeting. And Randy will be in with sports. Randy, I understand that the winningest NBA coach of all time is in shock today.
That's pretty much the case, Dylan. Phil Jackson, who won the NBA championship 11 times, 3 times with the Lakers, was not offered the job everyone thought was his. They went with someone else, and I'll tell you who was hired and more later on in sports.
Thanks, Randy. And Jordan will be in with weather. Jordan, it was pretty miserable over the weekend with all that snow, but the sun did shine yesterday. What can we expect over the next little while?
Well, Dylan, once we get past today, the highs should start to climb, although our lows will still be a fair bit colder than normal. Currently in Brandon, it's -10 with cloudy skies. Winds are out of the southwest at 7 kilometers an hour. I'll have all your weather details later on in the show.
Thanks, Jordan. The Minnesota-based business that will build and manage the Spirit Sands Casino in Carberry has signed a contract with the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs that will see potentially millions of dollars flow into its hands. 22.5% of yearly net income will be paid by the First Nations owners of the casino to Hemisphere Gaming. The AMC has also agreed to repay Hemisphere for expenses they covered out of their own accounts, as well as legal costs associated with getting a deal done in order to create the casino. Construction is set to begin in spring 2013. Trustees for the Brandon School Division voted 6-3 Monday night in favor of a 4-point plan to deal with overcrowding at several schools. Students in the English course at École New Era will be transferred to Earl Oxford School next September to help reduce the numbers at New Era. The division will also inquire about portable classrooms for schools that need them the most. As well, it will see if more French immersion students can be accommodated at École Harrison to take the pressure off New Era, as well as begin talks with Assiniboine Community College to make use of the vacant shop space at the Victoria Avenue East campus. Still with education, a Winnipeg school division said it will open its arms to welcome back a high school teacher who had been accused of sexually exploiting a former student. The Pembina Trails division says it's working towards a possible February return of Regan Moses, who was alleged to have had a sexual relationship with students for 2 years starting in 2006. Lawrence Lucier, the division superintendent, says the 36-year-old woman is on long-term disability, but where she will teach has not been determined. Lucier says he can't discuss details because of privacy issues and will not say if Moses' job had been filled by a contract employee during her time on leave. Moses was arrested earlier this year, but the exploitation charges was recently stayed by prosecutors. Defense lawyer Josh Weinstein says Moses has suffered greatly as a result of the unproven allegations and surrounding publicity. A public hearing into Manitoba's Hydro's Bipole 3 transmission line is heading into its 7th week, with a growing chorus of critics saying they haven't been properly consulted by the utility on route changes. The province's Clean Environment Commission may soon announce whether Hydro must submit a new assessment on its revised route for the 1,400-kilometer line to carry power from northern generating stations. The revision would steer the line away from caribou grounds in the north and moose habitat further south, but also bring it closer to Pine Creek First Nations on Lake Winnipegosis. The Crown utility has declined to file a supplemental assessment of the change, but the First Nation, Manitoba Métis Federation, and others say it's necessary and must be reviewed by Commission. Manitoba Hydro has said it's concerned that doing so would cause a delay in its plans for a 2017 in-service date for the power line. Terry Sargent, the Commission chairman, has said that to accommodate the route change, the public hearing's completion date may be pushed back to late January from the end of this month. A Manitoba town wants to institute a sin tax so it can afford to chase the sinners. The town of Swan River is considering a 3% municipal tax on booze to help pay for growing cost of policing. Councillor Jason Delorier says many of the crimes in the community are linked to alcohol. The tax would require approval from the Manitoba government, and Premier Greg Selinger notes a similar plan in Thompson was rejected back in 2008. A Manitoba labor group is raising its eyebrows at news that the federal government is putting the temporary foreign worker program under the microscope after complaints about a BC mine. Diwa Marcelino of Migrant Manitoba, which advocates for Filipino foreign workers, said problems with the program are the federal government's creation, so it's ironic for them to criticize it. He says the program amounts to systematic exploitation, such as the fact it allows the foreign workers to be paid up to 15% less than Canadians. Human Resources Minister Diane Finley says Ottawa isn't satisfied the BC mine made sufficient efforts to recruit or train Canadians for the job. And with that, let's take a look at where today's money markers are currently sitting.
You're watching Westman Newsline, produced by the media production students of Assiniboine Community College. Local news, weather, and sports only on Westman Newsline, airing on WCG-TV at 1 p.m. Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays.
Turning to international news now, it's the scandal that has rocked the CIA and forced out the nation's top spy chief. Tonight, lawmakers on both sides of the aisle want to know just how long the relationship between General David Petraeus and Paula Broadwell went on, and whether any classified information was shared during that time. CNN's Suzanne Kelly has the latest.
This is one reason why an affair between General David Petraeus and his biographer, Paula Broadwell, is raising questions about whether the relationship put national security at risk.
Now, I don't know if a lot of you have heard this, but the CIA annex had actually had taken a couple of Libyan militia members prisoner, and they think that the attack on the consulate was an effort to try to get these prisoners back. So that's still being vetted.
The sharing of unvetted material about Benghazi, a serious claim that the CIA was holding prisoners, and that was one of the reasons for the attack, a claim that a senior intelligence officer adamantly denies ever happened. But when someone outside the chain of command has unfettered access to the man at the top, it gives whatever they say added credibility. The New York Times reported classified information was found on Broadwell's computer.
I do not know how she got that information. We should find out. I don't know why. It's a rather confused situation.
A U.S. official told CNN there were no issues with Broadwell's access and noted she did have security clearance. The source also tells CNN the FBI investigation that led to the discovery of the affair uncovered no evidence that national security was ever put at risk. That's not surprising, says a former general who knows Petraeus.
There's absolutely almost 0% chance that national security was compromised or was at risk.
But it does raise questions about what's allowed. According to a senior intelligence official, having an affair does not itself constitute a security violation, unless it's with someone from another country and not reported. And there are no rules that keep government personnel holding high security clearances from having private email accounts. A U.S. official said Petraeus used such an account to exchange personal emails with Broadwell. Meanwhile, friends of David Petraeus out in force Monday.
It's a tragedy. It's a tragedy for the nation. It's a tragedy for the agency, and clearly a tragedy for the Petraeus family.
General Petraeus spent the weekend talking with friends who have offered their support, and they have told CNN that the affair began after Petraeus took the director position about a year ago, and that it ended about 4 months ago. Petraeus has insisted to them that he had an affair with just one woman.
A Colorado soldier accused of stalking young girls and then sexually assaulting them is in jail. Police say there are as many as 20 victims, all of them younger than 12 years old. As Will Ripley reports, a school resource officer who was at the right place at the right time helped authorities make an arrest.
Police call him a predator who patrolled these streets searching for victims.
They're all girls, and they were all under the age of 12.
Fountain Police Sergeant Scott Gilbertson learned of several incidents in July.
The suspect description and the suspect vehicle description was the same.
A man was targeting preteen girls, exposing himself and trying to lure them into his car, or worse.
All the way up to sexual assault, which is actual physical hands-on contact with the victims. While we were investigating these, more incidents started to happen.
Soon there were 10 victims in Fountain alone. Police say he also preyed on young girls in Colorado Springs and around El Paso County, going back 2 years.
It just really quickly became apparent that this was the same person, the same man.
The big break in the case came in September when a Fountain school resource officer spotted a man who looked suspicious.
It's 1 in a million shot that he saw him, And he did, and he brought me that information.
Gilbertson identified the suspect as 31-year-old First Lieutenant Aaron Gregory Lucas, an infantry officer stationed at Fort Carson.
And that's when the real light bulb went on.
He reached out to the military, district attorney, and 2 other police agencies. They formed a task force, shared information, and were able to connect all the cases to Lucas. He faces a growing list of charges.
Just knowing that we took a bad man off the street.
That's it for news, but stick around. Jordan's up next with Newsline Weather.
Good afternoon with Newsline Weather. I'm Jordan Olson. Well, as I mentioned earlier here in Westman, we had a pretty snowy weekend, but things are looking up for the next few days. Currently in Brandon, it's -10 with a cloudy sky. Winds are out of the southwest at 7 kilometers an hour. This evening, the temperature should remain steady at -10, but the clouds will start to break up a bit. Winds will switch to the east at 5 kilometers an hour. Overnight, the temperature will dip down just a couple of degrees to -12. Skies will be partly cloudy, and the wind will change direction once again, coming out of the southwest at 5 kilometers an hour. Turning to our radar image now, moving over Saskatchewan most likely are unlikely to bring much, if any, snowfall over the next little while, as the probability of precipitation is only 20 to 30% for the rest of the week. Turning to the satellite image, the heavier cloud that was hanging over Manitoba the last couple of days has lifted, but some more may be heading our way from the U.S. However, they'll likely to be spotty as we predicted, mainly sunny skies for the next little while. Taking a look at our 5-day forecast now, for tomorrow skies will be mainly cloudy, but look at that high. We'll jump all the way up to 0, but the low will drop back down to a frosty -15. On Thursday, the sun should shine, but the high will only reach -9, with the low falling off to -14. Friday, skies will be sunny once again, with a high of a welcome +1 and a low of -11. The sun is supposed to shine all weekend. Saturday, it will see a high of -4 with a low of -13, and Sunday should be gorgeous with a high of +2 and a low of -8. Taking a look around the region this hour, Winnipeg is in at -10, Portage at -9, Dawson's in at -8, Neepawa at -7, Carberry is in at -11, Killarney is in at -10, Minnedosa is in at -10, and Virden rounds us off at -12. The seasonal norms for this day are a high of -1 and a low of -10. The record high for this date was a mild 14.1 degrees set back in 1999. The record low was a frigid -24.1 set back in 1986. Once again in Brandon, it's -10 with cloudy skies. Winds are out of the southwest at 7 kilometers an hour. That's it for weather, but stay tuned. Randy's up next with Newsline Sports.
Good afternoon with Newsline Sports. I'm Randy Joseph Lilly. The NFL Monday night game featured an underachieving Kansas City Chiefs team and a Pittsburgh Steelers team who many thought would win their division. The two teams were tied at 10 going into overtime when Sean Sweezum kicked a 23-yard field goal to win right after Lawrence Timmons intercepted Kansas City's Matt Castle and took the ball to the 5. It only took 51 seconds to end the extra period. The Steelers moved to 6-3 while the Chiefs sit at 1-8 after losing 6 straight. It took 3 overtimes, but unfortunately for Toronto Raptors fans, they were the first team to lose at home against the Utah Jazz all season. Utah won 140-133 in a contest which featured the Jazz's Al Jefferson hitting his second career three-pointer to tie the game with 2.4 seconds remaining. Toronto's DeMar DeRozan had a chance to win it but was unable to convert. He matched his career high of 37 points. This is the second straight year where a game between the Raptors and Jazz has gone multiple overtimes. Last January, the Raptors beat the Jazz at 111-106 in 2 extra periods. The Los Angeles Lakers shocked the world on the weekend when they hired former Phoenix Suns coach Mike D'Antoni to a 3-year deal worth $12 million with a club option for a 4th year. There had been reports that 11-time NBA champion Phil Jackson would return to coach the team and that he would be announced yesterday. Alas, it wasn't meant to be. Lakers fans are sure to be disappointed, but one person who is not is Steve Nash. He won his 2 MVPs when D'Antoni coached him as a member of the Suns. And Dylan, that's it for sports.
Thanks, Randy, and that's all we have for you today. Please join us again tomorrow for Brandon's only TV newscast, Westman Newsline.
I think I turned too early.